Welcome to this episode of the RLM podcast. I'm your host, Eli Getter, and today we are joined in the studio by a police officer for the East Hempfield Police Department, Officer Stamm. Officer Stamm, it's a joy to have you here. Introduce yourself to the listeners.
Sure. I'm glad to be here. Again, my name is Officer Stamm, and I'm the school resource officer here at Hempfield. This is my second school year here at the school district. Previously, I was an officer with East Hempfield Township. I still am an officer with East Hempfield, but I was on patrol for 9 years.
Gotcha.
So 11 total.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I do not know much about the job of and the responsibilities of police officer, so we just kind of want to go over what it really essentially means to be a police officer.
Sure. The common saying is we serve and protect. So anytime that somebody's in crisis or they call 911, we're the first people to respond to the 911 incident to help people for whether it be medical related, traffic related, like somebody was in a
Right.
car crash, all sorts of things that people, you typically
Right.
know people call 911
Right.
for. So,
Yeah.
or even just, your minor stuff, like somebody lost a dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or like they just have a general complaint, or like a theft or a fraud
Right.
that's not really in progress.
Right.
They'll call the police and want us to investigate something.
Getcha.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, lots of responsibilities as a police officer itself. What is obviously you took the job as being a student resource officer. What made you take that job? Was it like something that they offered and you were just like, hey, I'll do it, or how did that come about?
Yeah. So previously we've had two school resource officers here at Hempfield before myself. The program has been around since 2008 is when we first started it.
Gotcha.
Police have been in schools since like the 1950s, but they've just continually grown the program, adapted over the years, and where a school feels they have a need for a police officer,
Right.
And we'll get to that. I don't mean like there's a lot of crime happening at the school. Like that's not what a school resource officer is.
Right.
There's so many more roles besides just law enforcement.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there was two before me. Sergeant Henry, he was here for 10 years, so he had a pretty good stretch. And then Officer Marks, he was here for 5. But he had those COVID years, so
Right.
we don't know. I don't know if it really counts as 5.
Yeah.
But I was really interested in it because I have kids of my own. They're much younger, of course. My oldest is only in first grade, but I wanted to make a difference, especially with younger generations,
Right.
and teach them a thing or two. I don't mean like teach them a lesson by throwing the handcuffs on or anything like that. Don't get the wrong idea. But I just wanted to make a difference in their lives.
Right.
Hold some people accountable that need to be held accountable.
Right.
But ultimately just be a mentor.
Yeah.
A mentor to
Yeah.
the kids.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know that you do have a very strong bond with I would say the Hempfield student body as a whole. When I had asked everyone what they thought of me inviting you onto the podcast, everyone was like, absolutely, bring them on. So
Oh, that's awesome.
that's fantastic that that you're able to have that bond with the teenage generation.
Yeah.
How do you feel? What do you feel is like the one thing that you've learned the most from being in the high school, interacting with 9th, 10th graders, 11th grade, and seniors? What's like the one thing you learned about us the most?
Oh, geez. The one thing I learned the most, don't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
There's so many youth that come from so many different backgrounds.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. growing up, like, I know what I came from, but not everybody had, the same things that I had growing
Right.
up.
Right.
They've experienced trauma in their life, and a lot of trauma when you're younger can lead to bad decisions,
Yeah.
or like, low income, things like that. So, I just don't want to like jump to conclusions, of
Right.
course. If somebody does something wrong, is you kind of have to look at the their circumstances, what they come from.
Right.
Not to say that if they do something bad, that again they should be held accountable, but that you have to take some of that stuff into consideration.
Right. Right.
Why they made the choice that they made.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's important to find that good. Find the. I guess it's not so fine. It's more. It's kind of a fine line of looking at where they come from and figuring out, hey, maybe they did this because of this reason, because maybe they're going through this, but also not, having a prejudice against them for the certain situation that they're going to be like, oh, well, they must have done that because of that. It's kind of keeping that healthy balance there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I try my best not to assume anything about anyone until I actually get to know them. Because it's like, if you don't even know the person enough to really know where they come from, what they struggle from, what they're struggling with, there's no reason to have all the problems that people just make up about other people.
Oh my goodness.
It's just
Yeah.
it's like I said it yesterday. The one thing I never understand is like why there always has to be someone trying to get back at the other person. It's like if you just get along, it pretty much fixes that problem almost instantly.
So, yeah, sometimes when two people have a problem with one another, all you have to do is get them in the same room and have a conversation.
Right.
Sometimes it's as simple as that. Just have a
Right.
mediation session, and they're like, what we were fighting about was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like we could, and then they're their best friends after
Right,
that.
yeah.
So,
And it's also funny because more often than not, it's these little disputes will happen because two people may want the exact same thing. They just have different ways of getting it. So they both they butt heads against it
oh
over,
yeah.
and it's like you guys want the exact same thing. There's no reason to fight about it. Just work together if you want to really achieve that.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
yeah. I did my best to stay out of all the fights and all the disputes and all that stuff because it wasn't necessary. But I mean, I don't want to I don't want to paint Hempfield in a bad light, but obviously we have like any high school, there are fights and there are problems. People have issues with each other. What was like? Have you ever like gone into a fight and you're just like they explained it to you, then you couldn't even understand why they even had a reason to fight. Like there was just like, even you looking at it were like, there's still no reason to fight, even after they went through a whole list of, oh, well, he did this to me and she said that, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly times like afterwards where I can kind of like sit back and kind of chuckle about what it
Yeah.
was all about. And but a part of that is growing up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when you're younger, I know this from my own experience is like you do make mistakes, and sometimes you overreact to situations.
Right.
You don't take the time to think before you act. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of patience.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, even just like taking a couple hours or practicing like some meditation or like counting
Yeah.
to 10, like even that could just make a little difference before you make you do a stupid act or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but yeah, sometimes I do chuckle a little bit about what happens.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say like sometimes people will think like there's fights all the time.
Yeah.
Which
No.
there aren't. Like I mean, if you think about it, there might be one or two here or there.
Right.
And then you automatically assume that it's
Yeah.
just like happening all the time, but it's not.
And it gets so, I mean, half the time, by the time the story gets out, it's so embellished from what it really was. It goes from, oh, he said this, and then maybe that happened, and then it just goes through this whole different story by the time everyone else finds out about it. It's just, I mean, that's kind of how the grapevine works, but
Mm-hmm. The whisper down the lane.
yeah. I mean, it is impressive to see how quickly skewed the story gets just from one person to the next, just because, I mean, I mean, we're high schoolers. We love drama. We love creating drama. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of funny and kind of
Yeah.
fun to be like, oh, why did this have to happen?
Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody's
Uh,
on social media
yeah,
nowadays too. It's everything blows up.
yeah. It's not a, it's not, it's not the wisest action when we decide to resort to petty disputes like that.
Hmm.
But I do want to ask you, how did you get into being a police officer? Was that just a lifelong dream goal, or was that just
So yeah, I wouldn't say it was a lifelong goal. So it was kind of interesting. When I graduated from high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I went into college very undecided. I looked at the course selection guide or what I wanted to do, and
Officer Stam, when you have a
um,
moment, can you call my extension 24451, please?
sorry, just pause in there. Okay, we don't need to say that part. Copy that. Yeah, so when I was looking at the guide there at college, I went to Penn State, by the way.
oh, nice?
I actually went to Penn State Harrisburg at first,
Gotcha.
which, I mean, if you look at that campus now, it's huge. All these branches.
Yeah, there's like what, 6 of them?
Yeah, they keep growing.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's probably like 20.
Oh, but yeah. I just yeah.
Yeah.
They only ever show 6 of them.
Harrisburg is a pretty big one, and I grew up in Middletown, so it was like in my backyard.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so I looked at the what I wanted to do, and I just like picked a random one out of a book, and I was like, oh, that sounds good. Like, let me
Yeah,
try that.
yeah.
I think I started with electrical engineering at the time.
Gotcha.
And so I took a few semesters, and I was always good at math.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, like it came really easily to me. I fell asleep in some math classes because I was just like, I always
Rose
knew I
is
was get-
falling asleep to
Yeah,
the numbers.
yeah. I was like, I knew I was going to get an A. So I took a lot of math and engineering.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, the engineering thing wasn't for me. So I switched to math education. I thought for a second maybe I'll be a teacher. So I did some observations in some schools, and then got it introduced to that kind of field, and
Right.
and then I was like, you know what, I don't know if I could be a teacher. So I ended up graduating from Penn State with a degree in math,
Oh.
just a general math degree. And then I was like, well, now
What am I gonna
now
do?
what am I gonna do? Maybe I'll go into business. Maybe I'll do like accounting or something like that with the math degree. So my dad, he was always a police officer.
Oh, nice.
Well, why'd I say always a police? He was a police
Right.
officer growing up, and he put in 32 years at
Oh, wow.
Lower Sotera, and then he retired from there and went to work at Penn State Harrisburg, and got the graveyard shift because he was
Right.
the new guy on. You know what I mean? But he did that for 10 more years as
So, wow.
as a cop.
So like over 40 years as a cop.
As a cop.
That's impressive.
And that's how I got my tuition discount from Penn State too. I
Yeah.
got 75% off
Oh, wow.
because he was an employee there. And so, hearing the stories from my dad, knowing what he did, that kind of influenced my decision. I was like, that sounds like something I'd want to do.
Yeah.
So then I went to the police academy. I went to the police academy at Hack in Harrisburg.
Nice.
I was actually part of the 100th police academy, and just put this in perspective, my dad he started policing in the 1970s,
Right.
and he was in the 7th police academy at Hack.
Wow.
And I was in the 100th.
Wow.
So big
Yeah.
gap there.
Yeah. Big gap right there.
So then I got out of the academy. The academy is like 5 months long, and you learn how to be a police officer basically.
Right.
And then you have to start applying for jobs because I was not hired on. Some guys go into the academy already with a job and they're getting paid to be there. I was not. I paid my way to go
Gotcha.
through. And then so I started applying at different agencies. It took me a year and a half until I got that call because it was very competitive
Right.
to get a job back then. I mean, there'd be 400 applicants for one
wow.
agency. And so finally I got the call to East Hempfield. and they did the background check. I mean, they talked to all my friends and
Right.
family. Like, it was legit.
Yeah.
I put me through a polygraph test.
Oh, wow.
I did a psych eval,
Right.
the physical, all that stuff. And then finally, they're like, yeah, we want to offer you the job.
Nice.
That's how I eventually ended up there
Yeah.
and have been there ever since.
Wow.
So,
And then when did you start working there?
so I started in 2013.
2013. Nice. So a little over 11 years.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
That's about as good as I am with math. It's the simple numbers for me.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, what do I do with this math degree? But hey, at least it's something to have on my resume.
Right. Yep.
And it'll give you a boost if you're
Yeah.
trying to look for a job. Because
Yeah.
if you're a police officer, all you need is a high school diploma.
Right.
But it will increase your pay, your
Yeah.
salary if you do have a little bit of secondary education.
Right. Did you ever consider like going into any like FBI, CIA, any sort of
Oh, I thought
intelligence agency?
I thought that would be really cool when I was younger. You do need like 5 years of professional experience to get into like a federal agency. And now at this point in my life, I'm comfortable where I am. East Hempfield's a great place to work. I'll have good benefits and things like that, and I have a
Right.
family now, so just to start a second career. Maybe when I retire, I could do a little something like
Right,
that,
right.
and have like another salary on the side. But
Yeah.
for right now, no.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've messed with like every single career option in my head. There's definitely ones I'm like I know I don't really want to do anything with like really engineering or math or like I'm not a kind of like a logistics or statistical person. Like I don't think it like I don't think with numbers. Like numbers, science, that stuff doesn't work with me. It's usually like I've looked into becoming like a professional chef. I've looked into joining the Air Force or the Marines. Like I've gone down every path. Going into law enforcement would be fun. Like I've always had the idea of going to law school and becoming either a lawyer or going from there to law school and from there to I don't know some intelligence agency, which would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone wants to be the CIA agent, but that's a lot of work. But
Well, you have a good head on your shoulders. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
you could definitely make that happen.
Yeah.
And we're always in need. So
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see where life decides to land me. I have no idea at this point. I'm just going taking it day by day.
Yeah. No. Just pursue your dreams. Do what
Yeah.
you want to do. That's the important thing. Is pick something that you're gonna have fun doing for the rest of your life, because you don't want to go through life not
Right.
enjoying
Right.
what you do
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So yeah, don't do what I did and just be undecided.
Were there any like stories that you heard or things that you went through that just completely changed like your perspective on law enforcement or police work or whatever?
So like before I got hired, or like while I was on the job.
Either one.
So like obviously you take a lot of risk,
Right.
being a police officer. When everybody's some people call 911, we're the ones that go towards the danger sometimes, while other people are running away.
Right.
Like even like a house fire, like fire department, like
Right.
they're going into the fire, so to speak, and the police are doing kind of the same thing. So I haven't had anything major that has happened to me over the years. It helps, with your mental health. If you do have good relationships out of work, and you can kind of detach
Right,
from everything
right.
that goes on, the crazy things that you
Yeah.
see on the job. But I do have friends that I work with that have seen pretty bad things, that have had some close calls, I guess you
Right.
could say. And you do hear about a little bit of
PTSD.
Yeah, PTSD. You do hear a little bit about that from your friends, and you can, even though it didn't happen to you, like you can
Right.
still relate
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Like my one of my coworkers that I got really close with. He responded to a call one night in the middle of the night where it was a domestic situation, and where the wife had gotten a protection from abuse from her spouse, and he was banging on the door, was trying to get in, and he it was an emergency call. The officer went there. To prevent anything bad from happening,
Right.
of course. And they always tell you, when you're going to a call on night shift, you pull up, but you pull up with your lights off. You park a couple houses away from where it happened.
Right.
And he got out, and as soon as he got out of the car, he heard a gunshot.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, he doesn't know if the gunshots are going his way. He doesn't know
Right.
what's going on.
Yeah.
So it was a scary situation, and I won't go into any more detail about that. But it, eventually had a safe and ending to it. But he was at a softball game, a few days after that, and he was walking past the dugout, and a foul ball was hit, and it clanked off the dugout.
Right.
And it brought him right back to that that night. You know what I mean? The sound of that ball hitting the metal roof.
Right. Yeah.
So those are kind of things that you think about a little bit. And even though I wasn't there, he's like my best friend. So I feel like I heard as much as he does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's good to just be able to detach. From work. I like to work out out of work. I take my health and fitness pretty seriously. When I listen to a podcast, it's usually about that.
Right. Yeah.
Or something else that obviously is interesting. But I got my family to lean on, so
Yeah.
it's always helpful.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's hundreds of stories of, obviously, people in the military are not exactly the same as people in the police force, but of course it's similar where they go through a traumatizing experience, whether it's overseas or even in America, and it sticks with them for the rest of their life. They may hear something or smell something, or just someone may even say something and just snaps them right back to that moment, and that's where it's important, like Evan and I were talking about yesterday, to recognize that and figure out what's the best way to, maybe not fix it isn't the right word, but maybe to learn to know that it's going to happen, live with it, and be able to do something that calms you down or something like you said, working out or listening to a podcast that just soothes your nerves so you're not in that high strung mindset. But yeah, like I said, family is absolutely important in that situation.
I totally agree.
Did you ever consider going into the military?
Yeah. I mean, I had thought about it. I had a girlfriend at the time, and my family was kind of urging me not to go and do that. But I have complete respect for everybody that joins our armed forces and serves our country. It just wasn't in the cards for me, but I'd considered it at one point.
Yeah.
And I think it would be pretty cool to do. But I'm glad the way things ended.
Yeah. No reason to be upset about that.
Yeah.
What was there any? Did you have a group of friends at high school that all went the same way, and then you kind of split off, and then they were all like, "Oh, what happened?"
Yeah, it's crazy how much I don't really talk to anybody that I went to high school with anymore. I was more introverted actually in school. I got along with pretty much everybody, but I just kind of kept to myself a little
Right.
bit. In this job, especially this profession of being a police officer, is you have to talk to people.
Right.
And
Right.
when I was a kid, that was one of the things I was shy about. I didn't want to do it. And it's funny how that has switched over the years, where I feel much more comfortable talking to people.
Right.
I think it's because if you throw yourself out there, if you actually do it,
Yeah.
you just can't. You kind of it comes
Yeah,
naturally.
yeah.
You have to do it for a living.
Exactly.
For your job, and you get pretty good at it. So yeah, I when I was in high school, they voted on homecoming court, and it was a complete surprise to me when they were like, "Brennan, you're on the homecoming court." I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Like, I don't talk to any of you.
Like, I was always friendly to people, and I
Right.
think that's what people thought.
Right.
Like, he's the the nice guy, so
Right.
we're gonna throw him on the
That's
homecoming
funny.
court.
You must have been like, what? Do you even know who I am? I
Yeah.
don't even talk to you.
Yeah,
That's funny. Did you go on to win home? as
No,
homecoming?
I didn't win. I can't say
that would have been as
that.
crazy.
Yeah.
No, that yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm a heavily extroverted person. I don't ever like I hate like obviously I love my alone time. Like every day when I go home, I love being able to just sit in my room and listen to music, play some video games, do some homework by myself. That's of course I value that, but whenever I get to school, and I'm like, it's a new day. I'm gonna talk to some people. I can never go a day with like just being by myself. Like I can't. I'm like I need to talk to someone, which is why like I'm happy that like any job that I like, ever am gonna get, I'm gonna make sure it's a job where I'm not just like in an office by myself
my
all day. I would go crazy in that. I could not do that. That's like it's not for me. Like
like being a police officer. Sometimes people say it's like the greatest show on earth, but because you literally, I mean, you see so many different things,
right,
and then there's a lot of paperwork that comes along with it. So there is some office time, but like you're sitting in your office, writing like a story almost because you have to explain
right,
exactly what happened and everything.
yeah,
And so like I'm not by any means a writer or an author.
right,
But like I can write a pretty good story.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
you can get into it, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And then you can talk to your your friends,
Yeah.
or you talk to witnesses, you talk to people involved in the situation or whatever that you were involved in. And it's interesting just talking to people,
yeah. Now, see, okay, I've watched cop shows. Like I've watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've watched some of like the NCIS and that stuff. How accurate is that to real like the real agency police work? How accurate is it?
Like the fictional shows, that it's tough to watch sometimes,
Right.
because some of the stuff that I see just makes me cringe a little
Right,
bit.
right.
But like I get sucked into it too,
Yeah.
just like anybody else.
Yeah.
And sometimes I want to see that, like I want to
Right.
see the fictional stuff because it's crazy where they can go with the
Right.
story,
Yeah.
and what they can get away with. But yeah, it's like so beyond the truth sometimes, and I wish I
Yeah.
could just reach to the screen and tell people like, no, that's not how it really
Right.
is.
Yeah.
It sometimes when it puts a police officer in a bad light, like that's hard to watch.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes. Now I know like there are cops that do bad things,
Yeah.
and like when I see that on the news, like that stuff makes me cringe too.
Right.
But when you see it on a fictional story, then
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, come on, why'd you have to do that?
Yeah. 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 I don't know. Like you said, I get sucked into that stuff because like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's hysterical. It has all that, sitcom, awesome comedy and stuff like that, and has those like, relatable moments and stuff like that. So it's fun to watch, like you
Mhm.
said. But obviously, yeah, I've always wondered. I was like, I wonder how like cops watch this, what they're thinking as they watch this. Are they thinking this is ridiculous or
Oh,
something like
yes.
that?
I mean, if you watch like a true like cops
Right.
show or something like that, then you can look at what they did and you're like, ah, yeah, I'm definitely not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or now that we carry these body cams with us everywhere,
Right.
that catches the full story, we can go back and watch our body cam footage of the incident,
Right.
and look at it and be like, all right, maybe what I did there wasn't safe and I shouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
Or like, maybe I should have picked up on that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to go back and with video, it's great how it's come around and
Right.
tell the full
Yeah.
story. especially in high definition.
Yeah.
So,
No blurry photos.
yeah.
Now just imagine if we had that attached to kids around school. Nothing bad would happen, I don't think, unless some kid got really smart with it and figure out how to mess with the camera feeds.
Yeah.
But they'd have to. That's almost more work than just deciding to just not do anything at all.
Yeah.
They're just making extra work for themselves at that point. Yeah, yeah. I've always, like I said, I mean, I have extreme respect for uh, everybody in uniform, military, armed services, police, even any federal agencies. I have extreme respect for them because, like you said, there is that risk of the job itself. Putting yourself in a situation where you're not exactly sure how it could turn out. It could turn out any number of ways, and it is, people will argue over how people use the word bravery, right? I mean, some people are like, oh, a firefighter running to a fire to save someone who's caught in the house, that's bravery, right? I mean, I honestly think anyone who's willing to take a job like being a police officer, like being in the military, that is brave because they're essentially committing themselves to being willing to, when no one else can, put themselves in a situation and, like you said, serve and protect all those who are in need. So thank you, I guess.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it is truly it's truly a noble thing to have such a. I mean, it's a pretty solid amount of our country that is in any sort of federal agency like that. So it's absolutely awesome to see the dedication that you see in people who are willing to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Back to the school stuff. Were you ever like when you went into the police force, you got through the police academy and you are applying for jobs, were you more looking towards being necessarily in a school, or were you just like, hey, I'm just gonna try and find a police department, whether it was local or
Yeah, it wasn't on my mind at the time when I was first
Right.
looking for a job. Like I thought, oh, it'd be just cool to just be a patrol officer. Go lights and
Right.
sirens to a car, like
Right.
call. I mean, everybody thinks about that,
Yeah.
like being able to drive fast and with safety,
Yeah.
of course. But yeah, like it was totally in the back of my mind. But like as my career went on, I grew a family and things like that. Like when you're a patrol officer, you work shift work. In Lancaster County and in most police agencies have gone to 12-hour shifts.
Right.
So like you start at 5 a.m., you don't get off till 5 p.m. and vice versa. There's a shift that works 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. With a little bit of overlap there,
Right.
of course. But you work 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 2 days off. And if you fall on a holiday like Christmas or something like that, like sorry,
Yeah.
sorry for your luck
Yeah.
if you're working
Yeah.
on Christmas. With the school job, it's like I have school hours.
Right,
It's
right.
like weird. I'm a Monday through Friday guy now.
Yeah.
But
Got
I
those
get
weekends off.
yeah, but I still get to be a police officer. Like that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I told you I went to school. I almost thought about being a math teacher
Right.
at one point.
Right.
And part of being a school resource officer is you're a mentor. You deal with law enforcement related things,
Right.
and then you guest speak in classrooms at
Right.
times.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think I could be
Yeah.
pretty good at that.
Yeah.
Like, I
It
could
even
go-
mixes teaching and being a police officer.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Were you looking to stay in PA? Like, if you go to the police academy in PA, does that mean you have to be a Pennsylvania police officer, or can you go anywhere in the country after that?
So if you go to the police academy in PA, you could be a municipal police officer anywhere in PA. The state police has a separate police academy where you actually stay on their almost like their base, and you live there while you're
Right.
going to the police academy, and then you already have a job
Right.
lined up. If you want to transfer from state to state, it's kind of like a teacher or a doctor. You have to take a state
Right.
exam,
Gotcha.
and then transfer.
Awesome. Were you just always intending to stay in PA, or were you looking elsewhere?
Yeah, just because this is where my family is.
Right.
You know, if I was still a single guy or something like that, then I think it'd be awesome
Yeah.
to travel.
Yeah.
But this is where my family is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Has I don't were there any times that you were like, you were in the job and you're just like, y- were there any times that you doubted and you're just like, maybe this job isn't for me or anything like that?
Um, yeah. I mean, I think everybody goes on that roller coaster ride, has those
Right.
ups and downs,
Right.
certain calls that you go to that kind of affect you a little bit. But for the most part, I mean, I like the grass isn't always greener on the other
Right.
side.
Yeah.
Like you could go somewhere else or
Yeah.
do something different, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you just kind of ride those lows at times, and know you know that sometimes you just got to have a little bit of patience, and
Right.
things will work
Yeah.
out in your favor
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Don't
yeah,
always have to rush into everything
yeah,
in life.
yeah,
Way
exactly.
better to just take your time and let things happen as they happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on this podcast and sharing your experience with everybody who's listening. Of course, like I said, extreme respect for the East Hempfield Police Department and all that you guys do for the community. So keep on keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to find this podcast on multiple different platforms: YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, as well as many others. We thank you all for the support you have been showing, and we wish you all a wonderful day and a great weekend.